Okay, I'm a little bit excited today because in my sweaty mitts I have the fresh new Asus Zenfone 8, and I was a massive fan of the Zenfone 6 back in 2019, pre-pandemic, if you can even remember that far back. The Zenfone 7 of course never came to the UK, but the Zenfone 8 thankfully is making it to Blighty. And at just 5.9 inches, the Zenfone 8 is that most rare of beasts that's almost extinct in 2021. It's an actual compact smartphone. Seriously, never have I been this joyously happy to wield something that's under 6 inches. But not only is the Asus Zenfone 8 refreshingly dinky, it's also tough as nails and packs in some pretty beefy specs, including the Snapdragon 888 chipset. It's got a lovely, gorgeous Samsung AMOLED screen, some fresh new Sony camera tech as well, and all of this starting from just €599, making it immediately very stiff competition for the likes of the Pixel 5 and that iPhone 12 mini. But enough blabber anyway, let's whip the Zenfone 8 on out of this box, take you on a full-on tour of the hardware and the software. You're going to be testing out the gaming chops, the camera tech, all that good stuff ahead of my in-depth review. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so let's check out what you get in this dinky wee box. Besides, of course, a dinky wee phone. And what you have is a fairly sizable adapter, one Type-C to Type-C USB cable, probably the teeniest pokey pin device I've seen of all time. It's just as small as the bloody phone itself. Oh. Hell. Yeah, that's that one lost for all time. And you do actually get a bundled cover as well, although it's not your usual rubber Johnny effort. It's actually a proper plastic hard case. And that's it for the box. So now let's check out the bloody phone. So here at last in its raw naked glory is the Asus Zenfone 8, and around back it looks like your typical metal or maybe even a plastic finish, but it is actually Gorilla Glass 3 just with a frosted surfacing. And this right here is the Obsidian Black model, but you can also grab the Zenfone 8 in Horizon Silver if you prefer something a little bit lighter. And I've got to say, it's not the most exciting of designs around. It is a little bit plain on that back end. I really think the Zenfone would do with a nice bright vibrant finish like a red or an orange or a green or something. I think that's just the excited child of me who used to absolutely adore those bright vibrant finishes on the Nokia Lumia smartphones, just crying out for just a little bit more vibrancy. Still, at least because it's Gorilla Glass 3, it should hopefully stay nice and scratch resistant. You've got an aluminium frame stretching around the edge of the Zenfone 8, and then around front it is Gorilla Glass Victus, the very latest Gorilla Glass, which is drop resistant as well as scratch resistant. You've got a good bit of IP68 water and dust resistance chucked in there as well, so basically this is the smartphone equivalent of Joe Pesci. It is tiny but tough as nails. And yes, it is immediately noticeable when you pick this thing up how compact it is compared to those 6.5, 6.6, 6.7 inch behemoths that I've been reviewing lately. And for a start, it's only 169 grams, so my weenie boy muscles are absolutely crying out in thanks right now, Asus. To give you a sense of scale, this 5.9 inch smartphone is about the same size as the Google Pixel 5 all round, and it's not as dinky as the iPhone 12 mini, probably closer in size, as you can see here, to the standard iPhone 12. And yeah, the Zenfone 8 is certainly a chunky monkey, although not to extremes. I do like the fact you've got that bright blue power button, certainly helps it to stand out. And I absolutely ruddy adore the fact you've actually got a bloody headphone jack on here. So that right there's the design of the Asus Zenfone 8. I really want to see what the rest of the phone is all about. But first of all, I'm just going to get this SIM tray open. I'm just going to poke the pokey device into the correct hole because I don't want to stuff it inside of a microphone instead. There's certainly nothing more embarrassing than getting the wrong orifice. And as you can see there, you've got support for dual SIMs. Only one of those can support 5G at one time, unfortunately, and no support for micro SD memory cards. Alright, so it's time to get this wee beastie all set up, and already loving the setup process with this jazzy animation. Check out the chops on that. Okay, so the Asus Zenfone 8 all ready for action. One of the best things about the Zenfone, certainly on the software front, is the fact you get near stock version of Android. It is the latest Android 11. You've got the ZenUI 8 on top, but it is very unintrusive. As you can see there, like the icons, the menus, they retain that stock Android vibe. You've got all the Android stalwarts like a apps tray there by default. You've got the Discover feed, of course. You'll find the ZenUI does add in a few bonus features, such as greater customization options as well, so you can change up the scroll effects, the icon label colors, the folder layouts. You've got all kinds of other preferences and everything you can play around with too. And even though one-handed use is pretty straightforward here on the Zenfone 8, you do actually have a dedicated one-handed mode that you can activate at any point. So say for instance you're in an app, you're struggling to reach a menu option near the top of the screen. Despite the Zenfone 8's compact size, all you've got to do is swipe down at the bottom here, and as you can see there, you can then tap away. Job done. You can change up exactly what appears in that status bar up top with lots of different customization options there. And because this is an OLED panel, you've got an always on display option as well. You can change up the clock style if you like to get it looking just how you want. I'm going to go for a bit of funky digital action. And you can have this knock off at night as well, so it doesn't disturb your beauty sleep and unnecessarily drain the battery. And that's not all the bonus bits by a long shot either. You can also configure the smart key functionality. The smart key is basically what Asus is calling the power key, this bright blue jobby right here. So as you can see, when you double press that, you can have it either open the Google Assistant or you can customize it to access an app of your choice. Now you can also change what happens when you press and hold that button. And one of the other big features on here as well is the Game Genie feature, which I'll touch on once we start doing our gaming tests. As for your storage space, well, the Asus Zenfone 8 comes with either a choice of 128 or 256 gigs of storage, depending on how much money you spaff Asus's way. It is UFS 3.1. As you can see, I've got the 256 gig model here. There should be plenty of space for my dodgy downloads, although, as I mentioned before, there's no micro SD memory card support to expand that. So let's have a shift at the security features as well. And what you got with the Zenfone 8 is an in-display fingerprint sensor, as you can see there. It's quite high up the phone, which is good. It's not all the way down here where you have to sort of stretch awkwardly for it. And so far, touch wood, seems nice and responsive, reasonably nippy, and it seems to work first time every time. I'm going to do a double tap. And as well as the fingerprint sensor, you've also got a good bit of face unlock as well, so you can just tap that power button. As you can see, that's instant response right there, so fast. Not very convenient if you're wearing a face mask, of course, but that's where the in-display fingerprint sensor comes in. Now, speaking of that display, it's a 5.9-inch AMOLED screen manufactured by Samsung. Very rare to find a sub-6-inch display in 2021, that's for damn sure. But images are nice and crisp thanks to the Full HD Plus resolution, 2400 by 1080 pixels. And even though it's quite a dinky display, I did have absolutely no problem whatsoever enjoying a good bit of Netflix content, Disney Plus, etc. on there. It's an HDR10 Plus certified panel, so you've got full HDR streaming support in the likes of Netflix, natural looking contrast and gorgeous looking visuals as well. You've got full sRGB coverage here, but you can also boost up the vibrancy to make everything look nice and vivid and punchy, and oh yeah, baby. And yeah, it is a shame you got that selfie orifice wedged away in that corner there, so you don't quite get the full view experience of the Zenfone 8 Flip, but it is only a dinky little selfie cutout, nothing too horrendous. The only issue I've noticed so far was there was a little bit of stuttering when I was watching some content in Netflix. Hopefully that is just a one-off or an early bug that will be squashed. And as usual, you can play around in those display settings. You can have a more cinematic vibe if you like. You can actually fully customize the saturation levels, have them nice, vivid, poppy colors, or just dial them down a bit. And in here is also where you'll be able to change up the refresh rate as well. As you can see, it's set to automatic by default, but you can have it set to 120 Hz or 90 Hz full time. And certainly even on that auto mode, just nipping around on your desktops and the like just seems so smooth. And as usual, the Zenfone 8 also comes with a stereo speaker setup. So let's just bump up the volume, see what we got. The worst of the heat. And as usual, you've got that game space tool, which you can pull out at any point just by dragging from the side there, and this adds all kinds of... So yeah, definitely that top end AP speaker isn't quite as powerful as that bottom speaker, that's for damn sure, but certainly on that top volume you've got nice punchy loud sounds, not much distortion either, so quite impressive audio output. Now, and did I happen to mention, praise the baby Jesus, that the Zenfone 8 comes with a headphone jack? And that's something you certainly won't find on the likes of the Google Pixel 5 or the iPhone 12 mini, so as far as compact smartphones go, that's quite the rarity. Got full support for high-res audio via that headphone jack. Otherwise, if you want to go wireless, you've got Bluetooth 5.2 support with all the usual shenanigans, LDAC and aptX adaptive. And you've got Asus's Audio Wizard to change up the audio output as well based on what you're actually doing. I'm accidentally pissing about with the equalizer here. You can actually fast access these settings at any time just by playing around with the volume and going in here, tapping this little bar chart up here. And as you can see there, you can change up the settings. Now, the Zenfone 8 may be diminutive in size, but it certainly packs a punch when it comes to the performance, with Qualcomm's Snapdragon 888 Billy Big Bollocks platform stuffed inside there. And this is backed here on the Zenfone 8 by a choice of either 6 or 8, or a frankly off its tits mental 16 gigabytes of DDR5 memory. So it's not too surprising that Genshin Impact played absolutely fine on those top detail settings, set to 60 frames per second as well, nice and smooth. I did see a couple of little judders here and there, possibly because the back of the phone was starting to get quite hot after about 20 to 30 minutes of gameplay, but apart from that, it was smooth sailing. And certainly no worries if you're playing a fast-paced action title like Genshin Impact, PUBG, Call of Duty or whatever, as far as the responsiveness goes, because it's a 240 Hz touch response display, so every poke and swipe just instantly registered. And when you start up any game like Genshin Impact, PUBG, Call of Duty, whatever, the Game Genie tool is automatically activated in the background. You can drag out this little menu toolbar just by swiping your finger from the edge, and this offers tons of bonus features, the kind of stuff that you would find on the ROG phones. So for instance, you can block all of your alerts, make sure you don't get any notifications popping up, make sure nobody's calling you while you're getting your game on. You can also bring up real-time system information down below as well about, for instance, the internal temperature, CPU usage, GPU usage. You can record your game for posterity. You've got the macro feature on there as well. You can even add a crosshair to the center of your display if you don't happen to have one on there by default. So just turn that on, and as you can see there, adds one any color you want. And you can also piddle about with the refresh rate to match your current chosen game as well. Sadly, Genshin Impact only goes up to 60. You've got full 5G support on here, of course, thanks to that Snapdragon 888 chipset and the Snapdragon X60 modem that is a part of that platform, and Wi-Fi 6 support as well. So certainly as far as your internet connectivity goes, that is you well and truly sorted. As for the battery life, well, it's a 4000 mAh cell stuffed inside of that compact chassis, and hopefully the Zenfone 8 will be able to keep you going all day. Certainly that Zenfone UI setup is a fairly energy efficient one, but I will be testing that out, and I'll be using the Zenfone 8 as my full-time smartphone for the next week or so ahead of my in-depth review, so stay tuned for that. And while the Zenfone 8 isn't the fastest around for recharging, you've got 30-watt fast charge speeds on there, no wireless charging support either, but Asus has thrown its usual battery safe charging effort. So basically, if you're leaving it in all night long charging up, hopefully, touch wood, that battery should not overcharge and therefore overheat, and therefore over the long term get balked. And let's finish the Zenfone 8 unboxing with a squint at the camera tech. And there on the back end, it's a dual lens setup, quite modest for a modern day smartphone. 64 megapixel primary lens using Sony's IMX686 sensor with optical image stabilization built in. And while the rest of the software experience is a fairly stock Android effort with obviously a few bits thrown on top, the camera UI here on the Zenfone 8 is definitely very much an Asus effort with lots of features crammed in there. So far the focus seems nice and nippy, as does the shutter speed as well. And at any point you can swap between that 64 megapixel primary shooter and the 12 megapixel ultra wide angle lens as well. This is another Sony sensor, it's the IMX363 this time. Hopefully won't be much in the way of distortion there, and also hopefully fairly natural color reproduction. We swap back to the primary shooter. You can of course slap a good bit of portrait action on there with adjustable bokeh. And if you jump to the more section, it's quite a modest selection. We do have the night mode on there for your low light shots. You've also got a pro mode and a pro video mode as well, which allows you to tinker with the general camera settings while you're shooting your photos or your home movies. And if we swap to the video mode, you can shoot at full HD by default, but you can bump that all the way up to, as you can see, 4K at 30 or 60 frames per second, or even 8K at 24 frames per second. But if you do want to shoot with that ultra wide angle lens, you will have to leave it at 4K max. So yeah, there's no telephoto shooter here on the Zenfone 8, but neither is there pointless macro lenses and other random stuff shoved on there just for the hell of it. And last up, if we swap around to that front-facing selfie cam, which as you can see there, you got a little light flashing around it just to point you in the direction in case you're struggling to find it. This is a 16 megapixel shooter using Sony's IMX663 sensor, which I believe is fresh and new. This is the first time it's been used on any smartphone. And I'll tell you what, it certainly ain't no miracle worker. If you look gormless in every selfie like I do, well, it's not going to help there. But it seems pretty good at just capturing nice crisp detail, reasonably balanced shots. You've got the usual portrait mode smarts on there as well. So once again, you can add a bit of bokeh action to the background and still look just as fucking gormless, of course. So there you have it, folks. That in a nutshell is Asus's fresh new Zenfone 8, the standard edition, not the fancy flip effort, which I am hoping to get my hands on real soon as well. But I've got to say, beefy specs, love that compact form factor, already fallen in love with this bad boy. And my SIM card is already housed all snug inside of that miniature frame, so I'm going to be using the Zenfone 8 as my full-time phone for the next week or so. Stay tuned for my in-depth review, which hopefully should be landing around sort of Friday, Saturday time of the week that this unboxing video goes live. In the meantime, be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke subscribe, ding that notifications bell, have yourselves a fan-bloody-tastic rest of the week, and that's it. Cheers, love you.